We're going to start with our Shkoyach Moshe, Moshe, and Moshe. Moshe Rabbeinu, Hazak Baruch. We have a sponsorship, updated sponsorship with new information. It's wonderful. We have a Talmud Torah sponsor today of Avraham Shaindy Kelman in memory of our parents and recognition of the hard work of Rabbi Silber. Our Rav encourages our community and the internet listeners. Is you guys on Zoom? Are we on Zoom? Let me check. Yes. Hi, Zoom. You guys hear me? Okay, got thumbs up from Zoom. To learn Torah and midos in his own special effective style, may go from Chayil Chayil ad Meya ve'Esrim. And we have an updated Daf Yomi sponsor. Thanks, Milt, for the update. From Milton and Melanie Gertner, Mazel Tov to our daughter Shelley and her husband Bobby Dolitsky on the birth of a baby girl who now, as of now, has a name. So you heard it here first, Rabosai. And a refuah shlema to this baby girl, Esther Fruma, Bas Shoshana Tova, Bas Mindaleya, and her other name is Lucy Olivia. So she has Esther Fruma, Bas Shoshana Tova, and Lucy Olivia. She has a lot of names. She grew up to fill up all of her names with a lot of strength, a lot of nachas to Milt and the entire family from all the children and grandchildren. Wonderful. Today's daf is Lamed Tes Malachos. Okay, it's not Shabbos. We're not going to talk about Lamed Tes Malachos. Actually we are, but just a little bit, just one of them. Yesterday we had an amazing halacha of Shomea Ke'oneh, that listening is like saying. We were talking about Hallel. The Mishnah spoke about Hallel. If somebody was reading Hallel to you and the reader, the guy up front, the Shliach Tzibor, is an adult male, you'd be Yotzei just listening. That's what they used to do back then. We're going to bring a Rashi. That Rashi says nowadays we do it a little differently. Rashi actually 1,000 years ago recited the Hallel a lot like we do today. But in the Mishnaic times, one person would recite it or read it for everyone. They didn't have a lot of Sidurim. Some people had it memorized, some people didn't. We said yesterday, if it was a katan reading it, he has to repeat every verse to be Yotzei, because the katan can't be Motzei him in the Hallel. But if it's an adult, he's Yotzei by repeating. So we talked about Shomea Ke'oneh. I actually misspoke. I said this Tosfot, which I assigned, if you were here yesterday, I assigned it as homework. I hate giving homework on Shabbos, but it was Kedai, this Tosfot on Lamed Ches Amaz Beis, Shama. The Tosfot talks about if you just stay quiet and listen during davening, you could be Yotzei. But he says he really doesn't like that. At the end he says, Elavada im hayashotek hayta shmiato hefsok tfilato. It's like an interruption. It's like a hefsek. If you're standing there quietly, not davening for a while, it's like a hefsek. If you take an interruption during your davening, lamaiseh, if it's long enough to finish davening, you got to go back to the beginning. So here it's probably a short hefsek for kadosh 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 or for Yehei Shmei Rabbah. It's probably short. Tosfot doesn't really like it. At the end he says, Miu shema avogav the Shomea Ke'oneh mikom makom adi. Oneh Adiv mitzvah nuvchar. So it says maybe Oneh is better, maybe Shomea Ke'oneh is not such a hefsek, but he doesn't really like it. Rashi definitely likes it. As the Rashi says, this is yesterday's daf. Okay, this is Chazara, and this is making it Lamaisa from what we talked about yesterday. Shomea Ke'oneh. Rashi says yesterday, Kena mitpolalim betzibur, b'shaliach tzibur omer kaddish o Yehei Shmei Rabbah yishtoku. So stay quiet if you're in the middle of your own personal Shemona Esrei b'tfilata, v'yishma'u bekavana, and listen with intention. So you have to not only listen, you have to hear, because there is such a thing. We learn there's an ancient song. There's talking without speaking, hearing without listening, things like this. So that's right here from this Rashi. You have to listen with kavana. You have to be hearing and listening. Hareze ke'onin. It's as if you're answering. Kashi yigmor hakedusha. When the shliach tzibur is done saying kedusha, yachzur letfilatan. You return to your individual tefillah. So Rashi endorses this Shomea Ke'oneh. Tosfot is not so thrilled with it because it could be a hefsek. The Art Scroll Rules of Davening, they endorse it. All the Sidurim I've seen do endorse it. The Shulchan Aruch brings it mefurash in Simin Kaf Daled Halacha Zayin. Eno Paisek Lo Lekadish Lo Kedusha Elo Yishtad B'Kaven L'Mash Omer Shliach Tzibur. V'Hei Ke'oneh. It's like you're answering. It's very good. The Raya, if you're called up to Torah while you're davening, you can't go. So that was great, but then I remembered there was that Inyan and Brachot. We said, what if you come late to shul? No one here comes late to davening, but if you happen to come late to davening, it happens sometimes. There's onus sometimes, and they've already started. So we said over in Brachos, if you can recite your individual tefillah before he gets to Kedusha, then that's good. Or if they've already done Kedusha, at least before he gets to Modim, then that's good. You should go ahead. So I looked for that in the Shulchan Aruch, and I found it, and I found something else that was mind-boggling. Rabbi Sai, this is absolutely riveting. This is to steal a synonym from Rabbi Silber. This is amazing. This is riveting. So he says if you come late. So he says this is in Koftes. This is 109 in Hilchas Tefillah in And he says, "Anichnas beit Knesset the matzah tzibur in Poland. They're already davening when you get in. Im yachol lachati or ligmor kadem she'yel shech tzibur lekedusha or lekadish yispolo." So go ahead and daven. If you're going to finish before they get to kedusha, you can say the kedusha im lav lispolo im einisha averet. If not, don't daven and wait for them unless it's like you're going to run out of mincha time. You're not going to be able to say mincha. Im nichnas har kedusha. If it's after kedusha, im yachol lachati or ligmor kadem she'yel shech tzibur lemodim yitpalo im lav yitpalo. So if you can get to, at least get a modim in with the tzibur. So go ahead and do it. But this is amazing, what he says later. The Shulchan Aruch brings an interesting halacha that I didn't see before. So you start davening the same time as the shliach tzibur. You come in late, and he's already starting the repetition, and you start, bam, word for word, you say with the shliach tzibur. So in halacha base, he says, the Shulchan Aruch says to do it. He says, go ahead and say word for word with the shliach tzibur, including the kedusha, including the nakti shach, the naritzach, in any of the kedusha, you say with the shliach tzibur. The Ramah doesn't like it. He says, aval lechatchila lo yatchil im ad achar she'amar shekedusha hakela kadosh. So he says, really. So the Shulchan Aruch says you could say it word by word with the shliach tzibur. Ramah doesn't really like it. Elishim chutzrach lechatchil mikoach sheshal ver. He says only if you're going to lose the time, you're not going to be able to daven. Okay, they least smoke gula tefillah, or you just said gula tefillah. It's arvit and your shacharit. You just said gula. You have to start with the shliach tzibur. Do the hachi. Then you can rely on it. But here's gimel. It's halacha gimel. It's amazing. Yachi the omid betfila. You're saying your individual shmonos, right? Kashigil makim kedusha, and you get to kedusha. Hayot tzibur omrim kedusha. So you started late, or you're going slowly. So you get to kedusha in your silent shmonos, right? At the same time that tzibur is saying kedusha. And this one is a kedusha desidra. It's after Ashrei. Eino omer kodesh imahim. Don't say kodesh with them. Shein kedusha shava. That's not the same kedusha. Nire dehu adinim hayu etzibur omrim keter, which is kedusha from musaf. If you're do nusach sfard or edut mizrach. Shein omer imahem kadosh. You don't say kadosh with their keter. They're saying keter. You're saying kadosh. Yishtok v'chavin lamasha omrim v'shemei kaoni. He says that's good. So then the Ramah is yesh omrim the kedusha keter lahinu kedusha musaf. That's musaf. The yachid mepalo shachrit yuchal lomar imahem. Maybe you could say it with them. Shem kedushat shmanis right kedushatan shaveh. So the Ramah says, Kineri Ikar. He says this would be Ikar. I've never seen this in a Siddur. But Ramah says, Lamase, if someone's saying Shacharit and he gets to Kedusha in his personal silent Shmonos, right, and they're davening Musaf already for Rosh Chodesh, and they're saying Kedusha, maybe he could say the Kedusha with their Kedusha because they're both a Kedusha of Shmonos, right? I have not seen this printed in the laws of any Siddur. I'm curious if someone brings this Lachalacha Lamaise, but the Ramah says an amazing thing, which is sort of this exception to Shomei Oneh, that maybe you could say Kedusha, even though you're in the middle of your silent Shmonas, right, when the Tzibur is saying a Kedusha, if they're equal Kedusha. It's not if it's Kedusha for the Ashrei Valetzion, Kadosh, Kadosh, but if it's Mamish Kedusha Shmonas, right, perhaps you could do it. And it's also interesting, the Shulchan Aruch says, if you arrive at shul, you're a little late, but you're right when the tzibur is starting. Maybe you could say word by word. Ma doesn't like it unless you're going to run out of time. But the Shulchan Aruch brings it as an eitzah to say word for word, including the kedusha during your Shemona Esrei. So that is lamaisa about shomea ke'oneh. So now we're picking up at the two dots on Lamed Tes, Amad Aleph, Makom shenachu lichpol. Now again, we're talking about Hallel, saying Hallel in a place where they're noheg to double up. So we know sometimes we double psukim. We say Ana Hashem Moshiach twice. So Tana, Rebbe Kofel. So Rebbe doubled up. Rebbe doubled some things. He says we're doubling up. Ba Dvarim. He doubled up some of the psukim in Hallel. Rebbe Elazar ben Parta Mosif Ba Dvarim. Rebbe Elazar ben Parta, he would add on things in Hallel. That sounds strange. My Mosif. The Gemara asks, what is he adding? Amar Abaye Mosif Lichbo. It doesn't mean he's adding something new. He's adding on by doubling other psukim. Odecha lamata. There's a famous pasuk where we slow down. We start saying Odecha ki anitani. So we say that twice. The Odecha we say twice. That's what we're talking about. That's what Rabbi Elazar ben Parta would actually double up. He would double up Odecha Lamata. So it's an amazing Rashi. We actually skipped this Rashi yesterday. So we're going to go back. I'm doing Tshuva. It's Elul. I have to do Tshuva. There's a big Rashi on yesterday's daf who says what we do nowadays for Hallel. Because our Mishnah is talking about before when it was one person who was Makri, was reading for everybody Hallel. And if it was a katan, they had to repeat. If it was a gadol, they could listen along and they would say Amen. They'd say Hallelujah. And they'd be yotze like that. So the Rashi says, and this is the top line of Rashi on Lamed Ches Amid Beis on 38b. He says, "Memasha on the roim shenogim achshav b'yameinu." What do we see today in our days right now? 1,000 years ago. B'batei knesiyot kedim beforish v'ozli. He says, "I'll explain it to you." Shayu nogim laot hallelujah shtei pa'amim. We say hallelujah, which is the first two tehillim in the Hallel. Lo yoter. We don't say hallelujah after every tehillah or after every pasuk like they used to do. We say hallel together. with the reader. Ad hodu, v'onin hodu, acharav. We repeat hodu after the shliach tzibur. V'chozu v'karim imo. We read along with him. Ad ana, v'onin ana hoshiana, v'ana hatzlichana. Acharav. So we repeat after him, ana hoshiana, ana hatzlichana. And those are repeated and doubled. So we end up saying them 4 times total if you add the tzibur and the shliach tzibur. K'moshe anu osin. That's what we do. Ve'ein zo k'kriyat rishonim. This is not like what they used to do in the days of the Mishnah. Shahayu onim hallelujah al kol davar. They would say hallelujah after everything, instead of repeating the pasuk or repeating certain phrases. That's what a Mishnah said. And so they also say this. Amar Rava minhag shel achshav. So Rava says our minhag right now. That's what we read yesterday in the Gemara. Anu lemeidim mahu iker kriyat chalo. What's the main thing of the kriyat chalo? Kashdiknuhu techila, when they first established chalo. Lefisha hakol chayavin bekriyato. Everyone had to read it. It was an obligation to recite chalo. But not everybody knew Hallel by heart. And again, they did not have a lot of Sidurim back then. We take for granted that we have a massive amount of Sidurim. They might have had one for every shul or one for every city. Who knows? They didn't have printing press back then. They had to memorize a lot of tefillah. Baal tefillah back then had it memorized. That was the godless being about tefillah then. But tiknu echad kore. So their tikuna was one person reads it for everyone. Acharim shomin. Everyone else listens. Kol oning miktsas. They would answer some of it. They would answer hallelujah, or they'd repeat some of it. Achshav shekol b'nei knesiyot tainu bakin. Everyone's bucky in the days of Rashi. I don't know if everyone had a siddur in the days of Rashi, but everyone was bucky. Rashi was before the printing press. Korin oto kulo afal piken onin shtei pa'amim. Even though we all can read it, or we can all have it memorized in the days of Rashi, we do repeat shtei pa'amim hallelujah v'hodu Hashem v'ana. So Rashi says nowadays we're bekin. I don't know if they had a siddur or not, but they were bekin. They knew it, but they still, nonetheless, would repeat certain phrases, including the hodu and the ana hoshiada. It's beautiful. Okay, not everyone was here yesterday, so I'm going to say something I said yesterday, and you'll forgive me if you were here yesterday. The Ger Rebbe told his Hasidim, he said the most important phrase in Hallel is ana Hashem. And the Hasidim say, they're talking amongst themselves. Is this Ana Hashem Hoshiana or Ana Hashem Matzlichana? Is the Yeshua of Hashem more important, or the Hashem makes us Matzliach? That's what we're davening for. So they're arguing back and forth. They go back to the Ger Rebbe and they say, listen, Rebbe, some of us say it's Hoshia, some of us say it's Matzlicha. Which is it? And he says, no, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. There's another Ana Hashem. Who knows? Kidney Avdecha. Beautiful. So the Ger Rebbe said the most important Ana Hashem in Hallel, to have kavanah, to really get it into your life, is Ana Hashem ki ani avdecha, ani avdecha ben amatacha. I am your servant. I'm your Eved. I am Meshuba to you, Hashem. The Shulchan Aruch brings l'chalacha. You need to be shiviti Hashem l'negdi tamid. Imagine Hashem's in front of you all the time, and you will lead an exceptional, amazing life. I'm not sure I can do it myself, but I guarantee if you do it, I guarantee you. Bedukum in the say, according to Shulchan Aruch, Shiviti Hashem Negdi Tamid, incorporate this midah of Ana Hashem Kini Avdecha. That's the most important Ana. So this was the Rashi who was explaining the minhag of Achshav, which is what we do. We read it from a Siddur, we recite it, and certain things we do double, certain things we do repeat. So that's what the Mishnah meant. Malkashim Nachgedu Lichpol, the place where they have the minhag Lichpol to double up. We go and double up. Odacha Kianitani, Odacha Kianitani. We say it twice. We say it along with the Shlech Tzibur. We repeat it to ourselves too. Levarach yavarach, a makom, the Mishnah said, where they have the minhag to make a bracha on the Hallel, they make a bracha. This Mishnah is only referring to the bracha after the Hallel, the halucha that we say after as sort of a concluding bracha on the shevach of Hallel. Avolafonov, but saying a bracha before the Hallel, mitzvah levarach. It's a mitzvah to have a bracha in front of the Hallel. Now this, Rabbi say, is the Hallel for a chag, for Sukkos. For Rosh Chodesh, there's actually a machlokus. There's another Gemara where Rav went to a city and he saw they're saying a bracha on Hallel, and he got very confused. He said, why are they saying a bracha on Hallel? That's very strange. It's a minhag. And they're poshet there. They were that place was making a bracha because it was Rosh Chodesh, and they had a minhag to make a bracha on Hallel on Rosh Chodesh. And this is the minhag Ashkenaz, but obviously it wasn't the minhag of Rav, because Rav was very confused. Why are they saying a bracha on Hallel for Rosh Chodesh? That's for Chagim. So the Sfardim don't say a bracha on the Hallel of Rosh Chodesh, but the Ashkenazim do. So it's that minhag of the bracha before is minhag in terms of Rosh Chodesh, but here it's lechalacha for Chagim. For the times we say full Hallel, during holidays we definitely say a bracha before it. And Abaye is adding that this, when the Mishnah says in a place where they know to say the bracha, that's the bracha after it. That's sort of optional, and it's mega makom, and nowadays we all do say it. Damar Rav Yehuda, Mar Shmuel, Kol mitzvah kulan bevarch alehem of ziyatan. Every mitzvah is a mitzvah d'Rabbanan to praise Hashem using the hollow. It's a mitzvah d'Oraisa to praise Hashem. We said yesterday to have tefillah, but it's mitzvah d'Rabbanan to use hollow. And every bracha we make over l'siyatan, this famous phrase, right before accomplishing the mitzvah. My mashma d'chai over lishna de'akdumehu. Why do we know that over, which usually means passing or crossing, means going in front of? Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak dichsiv v'yaretz achimatz derech hakikar. So this man Achimatz ran through the kikar, through the field, v'ya'avor et kushi, and he passed the kushi by. What is he referring to? When Avshalom was nifter. Okay, not just nifter, he was killed during the war. Avshalom was killed, and the generals sent a kushi to run and tell David HaMelech. Achimatz wanted to be Zariz and go tell David HaMelech himself. And he ran ahead and he passed him and he got to tell David HaMelech first, which was very upsetting and very traumatic for David HaMelech, because he had davened for Avshalom to do tshuva and for not to be killed. He had instructed his generals, please, don't kill Avshalom. He wanted to capture him and bring him back and please do tshuva. And it was, you have to realize this was a civil war. This was a terrible civil war. Thousands of people died. David HaMelech fled Yerushalayim from his own son. His own son defiled his concubines and rejected his father entirely. And all this because they say that David HaMelech never chastised him properly, never called him out for doing things wrong. He had sort of an inflated ego and thought he could become king even in David's lifetime. But David HaMelech, he truly loved his son Avshalom and was really, really shaken by the news that he had actually died. And so this Achimatz ran in front of the Kushi to tell the bad news. Never run to be the bearer of bad news is really the lesson here. So that's Ya'avor, he went in front. Abaye Abaye is another source. Who Avar Lifneihem, that this was actually by Yaakov. Yaakov, it seems in the Pesukim, Yaakov sent his wives and his children. It sounds like he sent them ahead, but then it says Yaakov Avar Lifneihem. Yaakov actually went first. So he sort of organized them and put them in front, and then Yaakov went ahead to meet Esav first. Or you can say Mehacha. Here's another source of Ya'avor Malkam Lifneihem Hashem Berosham. And this is a pasuk in Micha. Aleha Poretz Livnehem Partzu v'Ya'avoru Sha'ar v'Yetzuvo v'Ya'avor Malkam Livnehem Hashem Berosham. Their king goes in front of them, and Hashem, the true king, is Berosham. Is Ya'avor? He's crossing to be in front of us. We learn from here. Over really means in front of. Over passing means in front of. There's an amazing Taisvos, and it's very lemaisa. So it's the second Taisvos on the page. Over l'siyatan. Okay, we're not going to read don't get scared. We're not going to read the whole thing, but this is a very yesodical. Is that a word in English? Yesodistic. Yesodistic is now officially thank you. It's officially a word. We're masking there. The Tosfos says mitam ze tzorich levarach halulav kodem sheyitlenu. You have to make the bracha on the lulav before you take it. Dila achar shenat lulav after you picked it up. Mida agve once you picked it up nafak be you're yotze. So he says, how do you pick up your lulav, your arba minim, without, and then you say the bracha, but you're not yotze? What do you actually do to make the bracha on your lulav? So he actually has 4 suggestions, a few lines down. So Shema mishayatil little lulav, maybe when you take the lulav, kol mishal etrog. You should pick up your lulav, your hoshana, your greenery, your 3 species, before you pick up the etrog. Mevarech then, hinu over l'siyatan, shema akvin zeyatze, because if you're not picking up the etrog also, you're not yotze, you're dalid minim. So he says that's pretty good to pick up your 3 species, then make the bracha, then pick up the etrog. He has another suggestion. You pick up all of them. This is the famous upside down etrog. So if your etrog is upside down, you're not yotze. As we say at the end of this parak in a few days. You're not yotze unless they're in the way they grow, the normal way, right side up. So if you have your etrog upside down, you're not yotze, even though you're carrying your etrog and your lulav at the same time. You can go out to the sukkah like that, then say the bracha, then you say the bracha, turn your etrog right side up, and do your na'anuim. Right. And then he has a third suggestion, Efshar she'it kaven shlo letzet. Maybe you could actually pick them up like normal, the right side up, but you have kavana not to be yotze. This sounds fantastic. He's doing the maisa of a mitzvah without the kavana to do a mitzvah, and Tosfos suggests maybe you're not yotze yet, and you can still make your bracha over l'siyatan. He explains ad acher, so you don't have kavana latzed bo ad acher brocha. The avol gav the rinim besof reuhu bezdin. We say over there in Rosh Hashanah the mitzvot enu tzrichat kavana, that doing the mitzvah doesn't really need kavana as long as you're going through the motions. Okay, Rabbi said no one here is going through the motions. But if you're have your tefillin and your talis on and you're doing like this and you're saying Shema, but you didn't have kavana first, I want to be Yotzei the mitzvah of Shema, but you're actually saying Shema and you're doing everything right, you're Yotzei Shema. You don't have to go back and say L'Shem Yichud before you do it, because mitzvah ain't tzricha kavana. Mikom makom bal karcha lo nafik. You can't be Yotzei a mitzvah bal karcha, against your will. So even though mitzvah don't need kavana, if you have specific kavanah, you have specific intention not to be yotzei until I make the bracha, you can't be yotzei against your will. It's a beautiful thing. You can't do a mitzvah against your will. It reminds us of, we're going to learn in Gittin later, how we beat up the guy if he doesn't want to give a get until he wants to give the get, So it's, okay, sounds, okay. I'm not going to get into that, but it's kind of like that. You have to have the will, the das, or you're not yotzei. Okay, so he brings why they don't explain that. Inami, the fourth suggestion, mishum delo gamra mitzvota. You don't have intention to finish the mitzvah ad achar nenua, until you do the waving. So really, picking them up, you're yotzei the mitzvah. But in your mind, you don't want to be yotzei the mitzvah until you do your waving. It's like we explained yesterday, the forward and the back and forth, the up and down, and Ramal brought you could turn the thing upside down. Well, no one does this. So because you have in mind, you don't want to finish your mitzvah until you do the waving. So when you first pick it up, you're not yotzei the mitzvah, and you could still make the bracha and then do the wavings immediately. The predominant thing I see is people either pick up their lulav and have their etrog on a table right in front of them. That's his first suggestion. Or people do the upside down etrog, especially if you're walking out to the sukkah right before Hallel, and then coming back for Hallel. A lot of people, you'll see the upside down etrog. So it's that works. That's the second suggestion in Tosfos. So this is a critical Tosfos to understand when people are walking around with upside down etrogim. Beautiful. Mishnah. This Mishnah is completely unrelated, but it's beautiful. Halokeach lulav mechavero. You bought a lulav from your friend. Now Rashi here says he's not your friend. So that's going to sound a little shocking. Rashi says what's going on. He says the first Rashi in the Mishnah says li nirei lokeach lulav me'ama aretz garsinan. Deha be'ama aretz kamairi. The Gemara is going to explain this is an ama aretz we're dealing with because we suspect him of not being totally honest with Shvius, and that's going to be the problem. We're going to find out. It says in an ama aretz, if you're a chaver, an ama aretz is not really called a chaver. I mean, we understand a chaver means a friend, but a chaver can also mean someone who holds himself to a very high standard of kedusha and tara. His produce is always tithed, his things are always tahor. But the Tosfos says otherwise. The Tosfos says there are many places in Shas where they call someone who's an ama aretz a chaver. There's a woman who borrows something mechaverta, hashud al shvitz, so she borrows from chaverta. There's places it says you go ask your chaver to pick you to einim, so you have to tie them to mai. You see from there as an ama aretz who's a chaver. It says, listen, they're still called friends. Someone can be at a different madrega than you are, and he still be your friend. It's very important to keep in mind. You shouldn't lose friendships because you're trying to be machmir on something, and maybe they're made. Okay, there are sometimes dangers associating with certain elements that really, if they're dragging you down, nebuch. But if he's a friend, he's a friend. And you shouldn't be trampling on other people in the name of Hashem. Hashem wants us to all be chaverim, to all be brothers. We shouldn't be rejecting our brothers because of minor doctrinal differences. Okay, enough hashkafa here. So he says, Lokeach lulav mechavero, and this chavero is an amaretz b'shviit, during shviit. Shviit is coming. Rabosa, Shviit is about to come. Notin lo etrog b'matana. Get the etrog to be a gift. You can't buy the etrog during shviit. So we can't do business with perot shviit is going to be the problem. So the Gemara asks, Lo ratza litana b'matana. What if this amaretz who's selling you your arba minim doesn't want to give it as a gift? Mahu, what do you do? Amar Rav Huna, mavliya le dmei etrog belulav. You swallow the price of the etrog in with the lulav. We're going to do all of this, not next month, but next year. We're going to find out why. But we pay extra for the lulav, and they'll throw in the esrog as a gift. So that's what they do to avoid the isser of selling an esrog, because we don't do business with peros shvius. We're going to find out later why the lulav is not an issue of peros shvius, but the esrog is an issue of peros shvius. A lot of answers. We're going to get to that tomorrow also. We're going to explain that. But right now, the issue is we don't want to do business with the etrog. We don't want him selling you the etrog and you giving him money for the etrog, because that money will get kedushat of shvit. So we throw it in with the lulav and the hadassim and the aravot. You pay more for the other ones and you get your free etrog. Right. So why not just give it to him explicitly? Lefisha Ein Mosrin Demei Perot Shvit. So why can't you just give him the money for the etrog? Ein Mosrin Perot Shvit. We don't give, Demei Perot Shvit, the money for Perot Shvit, La'ama Aretz. So Rashi says, what's he going to do? He's going to hold on to the money after Shad Bir. Because the money that you use to buy Shvit gets Kedusha of Shvit. So the Shvit, now you can eat it. Shvit has a certain level of Kedusha. And when you buy it, the Kedusha goes onto the money. Now you can eat the Shvit produce. It's yours to eat. You can't do business with it. You can't buy it and sell it further. But you can eat it, and that money gets Kedusha of Shvit, and it would need Bior. Bior is the time when you leave out the Perot Shvit, when they're all gone from the fields. We're going to learn about this in depth later on, but when all the Perot is done, the wild animals can't find it out in the fields, so you have an obligation of Bior to set it out. There's a machlokas, what is Bior? The one opinion is you even have to burn it. Most people do not hold like this. I've never seen that happen. Just put it out and say it's Hefker, and then you could even bring it back inside. So even if it's Hefker for 10 minutes, it's all right. Even if you unlock the field and say, come and get whatever you want, that's all right too. According to some shittas. I'm not paskening, I'm not Baki and Shvius, and Shvius is very complicated, as we're going to find out this year in Eretz Yisrael. We are having Shvius in a couple weeks, so it's complicated, but Lamaisa, we can't do business with Perot Shvit, and the money you use to buy your Perot Shvit gets this Kedusha, and we don't want Namarts to have it, because he might misuse it. The Rashi says he might leave it after beer. Taisot here says he's going to buy other things with it. You can only buy food with money of Shvit, money used that you got from selling Perot Shvit. You can't buy avodim, karkayot, you can't give it to the bathhouse attendant, the movie theater, anything like this. You have to use it for food and drink. It's a little bit like Meiser Sheni, but instead of Meiser Sheni in Yerushalayim, it's like all of Eretz Yisrael, but you can only use it for food and drink. It has this special Kedusha. So we don't give it to Am Haaretz. Yoter mi mazon shalosh sudot. There's an exception. We can give him money of Perot Shvit of mazon shalosh sudot. Money for that day's food, for 3 meals. Now, it's really that day's food. Why are there 3 meals? We normally eat 2 meals a day, but on Shabbos we have 3 meals, so we'll give him enough money for 3 meals. A masar yomer, and if you did give him the money for an etrog, so you're a chaver, you're buying your Arba Minim, you gave the Amaretz money for an etrog, yomer, you have to say, Hare maut halalu yehe mechulalin, al perot sheyesh li betoch beiti. You have to say, this money I gave him, and now the money is in his hands. It's not your money anymore, but his money has Kedusha of Shvit. It's Kedusha Demei Shvit. He has to buy food and drink with it. So now you're going to be Mahalo that money onto Perot you have at home. So now you're going to give some non-Shvit Perot, because Perot Shvit already has his Kedusha. You're going to give some regular Perot, some leftover crops, that Kedusha of the money. So you sort of have to buy it back by exchanging the Kedusha on the money you gave him onto some fruit that you have in your own house. Uva ve'ochlan be'kedusha shvit, and you go and you eat that food that's in your house with kedusha shvit. Amid top, amid base. That's when he got this etrog from Mufkar. You're buying from an Amaretz who got it from Mufkar. Mufkar is Hefker. It was an open field. And the din is people have to make their field Hefker on Shvit. But from a guarded field, Rashi says it's fenced and the door is locked, and that's usher to do on Shvit. It has to be Hefker. Afilu b'chatzi iser usher. You can't give him any demei Shvit. You can't pay him anything for Shvit produce because he's not supposed to use that. He's supposed to take that from a guarded field. It's supposed to be unlocked and Hefker. Tosos brings Rabbeinu Tam. It's mamish. It's usher. These payers min shumar are mamish usher to eat entirely. Usher to use entirely. Maybe it's a mitzvah slav lahedes nit. You could use it for an etrog, but it's really usher to have it locked up. So sometimes you'll see on Shvit, the field might be fenced, the field might be locked, but there's a sign up that says the keys in my stender and such shul. I've seen this. They have a sign up on the gate, and it says on Shvit, and Lamaisa it's locked, so the riffraff doesn't go in, but he says the keys in my stender, and anyone who wants to take my Perot Shvit from my orchard or my field, you go ahead, and the keys in my stender, it's in this row, in this shul, they dafka where it is, and you can go get the key, and you can go in there and take whatever you want. That's still Hefker. It's only Hefker for people who are willing to read the sign and go into the stender and get the key, but it's still a Maisa. I've seen it done. I mean, I'm not sure which Rav was Machshir, but apparently it works because I've seen it done in Eretz Yisrael. Amazing thing. So that does work. It's not Meshumar, and that would be Mutter. So he says, Motiv Sheshes, and Mina Mufka or Gimel Sudos for Tulo. So even if he's taking from Hefker, we only give him 3 Seudos worth of money. You couldn't pay him very much money for this etrog. If it's a very mahudar etrog, it could cost more than the money of 3 Seudot. But to lower minhu, but there's another Mishnah in Shvis, hapegam, which is rue, some sort of plant, hirbuzin and sorrel, v'hashitin, asparagus, halgalugot, which is persane. I'm not sure what that is, but all the botanists will help us out. Kusbar, coriander, shibaharim of the mountains, karpas, shibinaharot, the cress in the rivers, Pagargir shel efar, and this is the meadow rocket, some sort of spice. Paturin min meiser, they're pater from meiser. V'nikhin mikol adam, you can buy them from anybody but shvit, during shvit. V'fi she'ein kiyotze behen nishmar, because people don't guard these things. These are sort of wild growing crops, and they sort of they grow anywhere. People don't really pay attention to them, so they don't really have this status on shvit of being guarded. So you can buy them from anybody. You can pay any amount of money for them. Hu motiv lo, hu mefarklo. So he asked the shaila, and he answered the shaila, bichdei aman, enough for his man, his mizonos shanu, enough for him to eat. V'ken amar Rabba bar Chanam, Rabbi Yochanan, bichdei man, enough for him to eat. Man here is of course manna from heaven, but it's enough for him to eat his 3 meals. Shanu. My mashma, the high man lishon the mizona. How do we know the man means mizonos? Now we know because man means manna, but how do we know here it means food? It says in Daniel, let me see, try to find the pasuk here. The king gave them their food, enough for the day, every single day. Mipat bag hamelech umiyayin umishtav godlam shanim shalosh umiksatam yamdu lifnei hamelech. So he had them there for 2 years, 3 years, and some of them stood before the melech. This is a pasuk in Daniel. And there's an interesting pasuk in Daniel, because actually what Daniel does, in Daniel Aleph, the king of Bavel gave him a lot of food. They gave him food, and there's wine, and there's everything. And Daniel famously started to be a vegan, because it wasn't kosher food. So he was getting all this royal food from the palace, but it wasn't kosher food, so he went vegan. He would only eat seeds and rice and things that were like mamish, had no shilas of kashrus on them. So it's not recommended, so it's an exception. This shows you that veganism is an exception, and it's only an emergency situation. Otherwise, you'd have the meat and the wine if it was kosher. So it's a proof from Daniel about veganism. Anyway, but we see that man, by man lahem melech, the king of Bavel gave him food. Okay, so before we get to Ihachi Lulav Nami, so this amazing thing is Shvi. We're holding right now on Shvi, it's Tosefet Shvit. So there's such a thing as Tosefet Shvit, and we actually had this last week. Does anyone remember there was a halacha l'Moshe Sinai about Shvit? We had it last week. Anybody? Somebody said something about trees? I heard something about trees. Okay, way back on Lamed Dalet, it's Lamed Dalet. We had a halacha called Eser Netiot, and we were asking about, we mentioned Eser Netiot, Arava, the Arava, and Nisuch HaMayim is halacha l'Moshe Sinai. So the Rashi here explains on Lamed Daled, Ahmed Aleph, he says, what is this Eser Netiot? What does this have to do with Shvit? He says, it's a Mishnah he said it was Zerayim in Shvit. Eser Netiot, 10 saplings. These are fresh young trees. Mefarazot betoch Beit Seah. They are scattered within a Beit Seah, which is nun by nun amma, it's a certain amount of land. She'ein bein zeh lezeh ela kamashi yesh bein zeh lechaverta. So the trees are chaverim also. They're equidistant. The trees are at equal distances in this Beit Seah. Tafsu Beit Seah. They say planted in this Beit Seah. Shu nun amma al nun amma mifarazot leorech rochav, scattered throughout b'shava equally. Chorshin kol Beit Seah bishvilan. You can plow this entire area, this entire Beit Seah, for these new saplings, for these trees. Erev Shvit ad Rosh Hashanah. So until Rosh Hashanah, this is right now. This is during Elul. Ad Rosh Hashanah, you can still plow your field with your Eser Netiot. They're equidistant 10 saplings. Even though right now in Elul, it's a mitzvah of Tosefes Shvis, of the added on time to Shvis. So there's a pasuk Rabbi Kiva's Dorish. This pasuk Mecharish Katzer Tishbot, but the Torah told us that it's Asr on Shvit. So he says it's Charish Shel Erev Shvit, Hanichnas LeShvit, Asr Lacharish Shloshim Yom Lifnei Rosh Hashanah. So 30 days before Rosh Hashanah, we say it's Asr to plow your fields because it's Erev Shvit. It's Tosefes Shvit. Like we have Tosefes Shabbos. We start Shabbos. We bring Shabbos a little bit before Shkia, and coming attraction for a month from now, there's also Tosefes Yom Kippur, which is also Deraisa. Yom Kippur is like Shabbos. You have to add a little bit on Me'achol ala Kodesh. You have to add on. So it's something to keep in mind. If you're running late, Erev Yom Kippur, don't run late, please. it's Deraisa. And he says here, Tu Shvius is Deraisa, 30 days before, we add on. And he brings, Rashi continues to explain, based on Mod Katan, that the Chazal say even from Pesach, certain plowing they wouldn't do. And even from Shavuos, they wouldn't plow for trees. It's only for these 10 saplings were makel during the 30 days, which is really the deraisa tosefes but we are mako for these eser netios because they need to be plowed. They need to aerate the roots, and they need to have access to for the water to get to the roots. And so we allow it for the eser netiot in this Beit Seah. Rashi says, Ilanot Zukenim, old established trees, Nesar, Lamed Yom, it's Aser, 30 days, leave Rosh Hashanah. You can't plow them. He brings from Moed Katan, they explain there. But the eser netiot, the young trees, are very different. This reminds us, we talked about yesterday being parents of young children and trying to protect them from the outside world, but children need a lot of nourishment. I'm not saying you take them out to the field and you make them plow, but I'm saying they need air, they need water, they need natural environment. They need a lot of love when they're young. They need a lot of love. They need a lot of open space. So we're makel erev shvius. We plow the field because these eser netiot, these 10 saplings, they need extra food, they need extra water, they need extra aeration, they need a little extra. So it's always kedai as parents to stop and give a little extra. We're so busy. All of us are so busy, and just to stop and give some extra attention to our little saplings at home. It's so chashuv. It's so chashuv that we're makel erev shviut, which is the raisa for it. So you understand eser netiot, halacha mush b'sinai, and it's halacha for all of us l'maseh. So that's erev shviut. It's interesting. Elul right now. It's not just Tosefes Shemitah. There's another thing that happens on Rosh Chodesh Elul. Not just we brought out the shofar. If anyone else knows what Rosh Chodesh Elul is, I heard some mumbling. And we're coming up. We're getting to be almost to the Gemara Rosh Hashanah. We're almost to Rosh Hashanah. We're almost to the Gemara Rosh Hashanah also. Anyone know what Rosh Hashanah is? It has to do with the first Elul. It's a new year. Whose new year? Behemoths. Okay, Elon is Tu B'Shvat. Behemot. It's the Rosh Hashanah for Behemot is Elul. So I was zoche a long time ago when I used to be young. When I was young a long time ago, I was zoche to be by Rav Mordechai Eliyahu. That's all. When he was starting, it was Rosh Chodesh. It was Motzei Rosh Chodesh Elul. So it was the night after Rosh Chodesh Elul because we don't say Slichot on Rosh Chodesh itself. So it was the first day of Elul that we say Slichot. So at Chatzot at midnight, we went to his shul in Givat Shaul, and Mordechai Eliyahu comes in, and I tried to get close to him, and the bodyguards shoved me because it's Eretz Yisrael. That's what they do. You know how it is. And he gave a little drasha, and he mentioned this halacha that Rosh Chodesh Elul is Rosh Hashanah for Behema. And he said, we're about to say Slichot. I can't say it as well as he did. And he said it in beautiful Ivrit, and my Ivrit is not beautiful. But he said beautifully, we're about to start Slichot, and we have this month of Avodah of Elul. You have to understand that the Sephardim say Slichot an entire month. I'm not saying anyone's a sinner, anyone's not a sinner or anything, but okay. The Sephardim for an entire month of Elul say Slichot early in the morning or at midnight, and not just between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, but an entire month of Elul. So he was saying, we're about to have this Avodah of Elul, and today, Rosh Chodesh was Rosh Hashanah the Behema. And it's the time of accounting for all the Behema. He says, and there's Behema in all of us. All of us, sometimes we act like a Behema, God forbid, or we're pulled to act like a Behema, and now it's time to take stock. It's Elul, it's time to take stock realize that you're a human being with a holy neshama. You're not just a body like an animal. You're something higher, and you can overcome any sort of Behema-ness. I don't know if that's a word either, but Behema-kite that you have is now, in Elul is the time to overcome that. So here we are, Baruch Hashem, in Elul, many years later, and I remember what Rav Mordechai Eliyahu Zatzal said. It was beautiful. That was amazing shul. After the Nates Minyan there, they would pass out Tehillim, and they would say the entire book of Tehillim right after the Nates Minyan, and then give you coffee. It's very nice, very beautiful. So Rav Mordechai Eliyahu Zatzal said about Elul and about Rosh Hashanah for the Behema, to remove the Behema-kite. And that's from Elul is the Tosefet Shvit, the Deraisa. There's a Tosefet Shvit, Tosefet Shemitah, and we don't plow except for these Eser Netiot that we had last week we discussed. Beautiful. So, okay, a little bit more, and we'll wrap up. Okay, got to find my place again. Ihachi Lulav Nami. If there's a problem with Shvit, Lulav Nami, there should also be a problem with the Lulav. So there's a problem with your etrog. Don't give money for your etrog to the Amma Aretz. Be mavliya, swallow it up, and if you did, you have to be machalo the money on regular parrot you have in your house. What about the lulav? Isn't the lulav? Say lulav bar shishit anichnas l'shvitu. The lulav is from the 6th year entering the 7th year. So lulav really grew. Most of the growth happened last year before Shemitah started. I mean, we can't say the lulav grew during the 15 days from Rosh Hashanah until Sukkot. So they say, okay, lulav bar shishit nichnas shvitu ihachi. If so, etrog nami bar shishit nichnas shvitu he. So they say etrog should also be if you have a nice ripe etrog now. Rashi says it's impossible that this whole etrog grew in the 15 days from Rosh Hashanah until Sukkot. It's impossible. It must have been most of the growth was last year, and we know from an etrog it's pre-eitz hadar. What does that mean? Hadar. It's one of the pshatim. It stays on the tree from year to year. So it could even be 2 years old or 3 years old. Or at least it's from last year. We can't say most of the etrog grew during Shemitah, during the 15 days we've already had of Shvit. So etrog nami. They say no, etrog is different. Etrog batar lekita azlinan. Etrog goes after harvesting. And etrog is like a vegetable that the meiser and the shvit status of the etrog goes after the time of harvesting. Again, because the etrog is a special fruit. Because it stays on the tree from year to year, we can't say, well, this etrog is from 3 years ago, this one's from 4 years ago, that one's from last year. It would be completely confusing. You have to label every etrog on the tree. It's not really possible. So it goes after vegetables. Rashi here actually explains because it's gadol kol mayim. It needs a lot of water, like vegetables. We say an etrog is gadol kol mayim. It needs not only rainwater, it needs artificial irrigation to grow properly. I'm not bucking etrogim, but that's what Rashi says. So therefore, it's like a yerek, like vegetables that also need irrigation constantly. So the etrog goes after lekita. When you pick the etrog, that's what we go for meiser and for shmita azlinan. Baha bein Rabbi Gamliel bein Rabbi Eliezer inyan shvit etrog batar chanata azlinan. But they both of these tanaim go after chanata, which is the budding. When the flower buds into the fruit, it's chonet. This chanata, they say that's the time that matters. Ditznan, the Mishnah says, etrog shavel ilon begimel drachim. An etrog is like a tree for three things. The yerek b'derech echad, and like a yerek, like a vegetable for one thing. Shavel ilon begimel drachim the orla. Orla is the first 3 years. We don't eat any of the fruit. It's aser. The ravai, that's the 4th year. Kerem ravai, we take it to Yerushalayim l'shvit. And for shvit, we go be like a tree. The yerek b'derech echad, and it's like a vegetable for one thing. Turning over to mem. B'shot lekitato isuro. That is, lekita is for the meiser. So it goes after meiser from the time you pick the etrog, not from the time it grows. We see it goes after chanata, the budding, according to Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Eliezer, it goes after the budding. Divi Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, etrog shavel ilan the kol davar. He says that etrog is like a tree entirely. Hu damar ki haytana. So he agrees with this Tana. The Tanya, Rabbi Yosei of Tulmos, Haid Mishum Chamisha Zakanim. He testified from 5 Zakanim, etrog achar lekita lemeiser. He says etrog goes after when you pick it only for meiser, not necessarily for shvit. Rabbotainu nimnu be'usha, and our rabbis got together in Usha and they voted. And this vote was an honest vote. There was no Dominion servers, there was no Russian collusion, there was nothing. It was a great vote in Usha. V'amru bein lemeiser, bein leshvit, shvit. So it's shvit. Either for meiser or shvit, it goes after when you pick it. Shvit man dakar shmei. Why are we talking about shvit? Chutzui mechasra haki katani. This is what they're really teaching. Etrog achar lekita lemeiser v'achar chanata leshvit. So that's what Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Gamliel said. They said it would go after chanata, after the budding. So again, it'd be a problem. You have to keep track of when every fruit on the tree buds, and it could be different etrogim from different years on the same tree. Rabbotainu nimna be'usha. Our rabbis voted in Usha. They got together. They voted Amru etrog batar lekita bein lemeiser bein leshvit. So we're going to leave off there, but we see that they voted, and they decided that really the halacha for etrog is it goes after when you pick it like a vegetable. So you see the etrog is a very special tree, and it reminds us the etrog is like our heart. And the etrog, our heart can be up on the tree for many years, and no one's using it. And it's our heart. It's full of emotions and thoughts and desires and powers and goals, but it's up on the tree. It doesn't come into action until you pick it. You have to open up your heart. You have to pick it. You have to start using it, and then it comes into action. And we go basar lekita. Hazaga Baruch. Have a great week.